Today's video is a guide on how to run the financial literacy session aimed around the Global Money Week program, which will be running in March this year. The video is to assist you in taking our standard presentation and delivering a program to families and community groups in your area using our provided collateral and aligned with the values of both the program and the global initiative. Global Money Week is exclusive to the MFAA. It's a global initiative focusing on financial literacy for children, which they define as people under the age of 18 around the world. It's never been run in Australia before. We felt as an executive team it was something that our brokers could deliver, giving them presence and brand in the community. And so we made an arrangement to create a program that any broker can deliver in any location around the country. So before you get started on your session, I just want to get at some key focuses for any broker running a session. The main thing is to start, you've got to be positive and interactive. You need to be upbeat because you're dealing with children and we need to keep them engaged. So it's very important that you have that positive attitude in delivering the presentation. The focus is on interactivity. We're actually asking for you and looking for you to engage and get them involved. The presentation is set up to ask questions of the children, making sure that you cover at least every child during the session as well, so we get them all involved. It's the best way to create education and engagement. The most important thing to do is to relax, enjoy the session yourself. Remember that the people you are talking to see you as the expert. You are one of the most financially literate people in the country. You're well educated. You're in a great position to assist these Australian families in moving forward with this issue. So the basic principle of today's presentation is to develop a higher level of financial literacy awareness in the Australian community. It's really focused on saving. So there are two presentations for you to use today. One aimed at primary school children, the other aimed at high school children. One's a little bit longer because high school kids are obviously a little bit more mature and a bit more educated, so they understand different levels. So make sure you're using the right presentation. And keep the focus on interacting with them directly. So when you get the session started, it's really important that you get everyone quite quiet to start off with because kids can be a bit rowdy. The first thing to do after that is to introduce yourself and explain the basic reasons why you are here. And say today we're going to learn about the theme, which is take part, save smart. So today we're going to learn about saving and money. Don't over-communicate that message. Don't try and explain it further than that. It's really important, particularly with children, that we get straight into the presentation and get them involved in the interactive session. Before we get started, another thing to focus on is to actually get them involved, to answer questions as you go, but keep each session within the time. Keep it short, sharp and sweet. We do have a running sheet for you that has how to run a session. You can refer to that on the website at any stage. So starting the presentation, I'm going to take you not through every single slide. I will take you through some of the key slides and what to do. Some of the slides are very similar in terms of their format, and there are speaking notes under each slide so you'll know what to cover. What I want to get with you today is technique and ability to keep it engaging and positive. So make sure that you've read those slides, make sure that you've done a run through with somebody who's going to be honest with you so that you can get used to it and be well practiced before you hit this crowd of families and community groups. So slide one, saving. Saving is the principle of the whole theme this year. And so slide one starts with a very simple proposition is, what is saving? And because we're aiming at children, we're going to start building up from the primary level into high school. You'll be doing this with the high school as well. So the first question is, imagine if you receive $5 a week, how many lollies could you buy for that? Now, even high school kids eat lollies. And what we're saying is you should offer some suggestions in your presentation. You should say, is it 100 or is it 20? Try and give a prompt because they're coming in cold and you're going to need to prompt them into being interactive and then deliberately pick people in the audience asking them to answer that question. So slide two is actually where we start to develop the literacy education. So what we say is, now we've had fun with the $5 buys you how many lollies. Imagine if you save that $5 each week. And we're asking them to think about, if you saved it every week, how much money do you think you'd have at the end of a year, at the end of 52 weeks? And there are multiple choice options here, and you're going to ask them to choose one. So go around the crowd and say, how much do you think it'll be after 52 weeks? And next click on the slide will actually bring up the answer, which is $260. So what you should do at that point is saying, well, the real answer is $260, so those who guessed over 200 are right. What we're going to do in slide 3 is explore why do you save? And the idea around this slide is to say, what can you buy for that $260? Get more of an aspirational message, get them thinking about something bigger than a bag of lollies. And we're taking them on this journey from a bag of lollies now to saving and developing a more spending power for you later on down the track. So within the slide itself, it has options. Our favourite one, of course, is buy a present for mum. So read the options out and ask them to choose one so that you can discuss it with them. So the next series of slides are our one-off question slides with speaker notes, and I ask you to have read those speaker notes so that you've got key information you can talk about. What we want to do in this next series of slides is ask the room questions. So what are your saving goals on the next questions? Get them to give you an idea of something they would save for. If you feel positive about it, focus on one of them. So if someone, say, brought up a bike, talk about, well, how much would a bike cost and what would you like to buy with a bike? There are ways of keeping your audience really engaged, and that's one of them. One of the great things to remember is we're trying to involve every single child in the room. We don't want it dominated by those with the much bigger personalities. So in all of these presentations, make sure that you're asking every child to contribute at some stage. It makes them feel involved. It makes their parents feel connected and proud of them. Very important technique to keeping them engaged, particularly in the next series of slides, which are kind of one statement slides angling towards interactivities. The next one, what are your saving goals? We want to know what they would save for. My advice to you here is have something that you can suggest to them as well. So you might say, when I was 17, all I wanted was a skateboard. The key thing here is know the speaker notes. Another trick in doing a great presentation is read the information we provide you, but handwrite on a printed version your own speaker notes so that it talks like you and it sounds like you. It's really important that you be authentic when you're delivering a message to people. So you just would have seen a slide come up in the video today that listed the next 4 or 5 slides which have a one statement line on each of them. These are all delivered in the same way. These slides are an interactive question to your audience. I will show it again at the end. So in these, it's simply ask the audience, engage 2 or 3 people in the crowd each to respond to it, and then share a story of your own if you feel comfortable. All right, the next slide that you're going to talk about is spending. And what we're trying to do is to find out what influences how they spend. And again, it's interactive. So there are a series of options there for you which will allow you to engage the crowd around the things that influence what they spend on. And again, that can be quite fun, and I would give an example of your own as well. Probably one of the ones funniest to focus on is because it makes me cool. And remember, we are dealing with children under the age of 18, and being cool is really important even when it comes to spending money. The next slide is needs and wants, and this is a great opportunity for you to define the difference between the things they need to survive and the things that they may want. And it's a very important part of financial literacy education that they understand the difference between these two. So it's important, and it's in the speaker notes, that you communicate that a need is something that they need to survive. You know, key things that are listed there. In each of these, we've offered multiple choice, with one of the multiple choice answers an obvious, and often indicated by the picture, an obvious wrong. And what we're trying to do is get them to guess. So instead of asking their opinion in this part, we want you to ask them to guess which is not necessarily a need. The next slide just offers the explanation of what a need is. A need is something you can't live without. And again, the speaker notes have information there for you, but what we're talking about is you can't live without shelter or power, can't live without food. So they're key things that they understand. There are things that are more important that they have to spend money on some stage than the things that they want. The next slide you're going to get to is wants. So wants, very different from needs, is something that you may want but you don't need to survive. So again, multiple choice, read out the statement and then go through the multiple options. And again, obviously the one down the bottom is chores, is not a want. No one wants to do that. So you can actually make some statement around that to your audience to try and get some laughter and some interactivity. So a want is something that you'd like to have, but you can live without. And it's really important that you emphasize that message. So now we're moving more into the more high school version of the presentation, and it's about money. So the focus of this slide is, how do you get money to save? Again, ask your audience, what are some of the things they can do to get money that will help them save? And the answers are over the page. So when you click to the next slide, it'll have a list there. So there are two things in this presentation. One are a list of things that they can do to earn extra money, and you'll see them listed down there. I would certainly make sure that you read those out. There's also a graph there which can show if they're earning $10 extra a week, how much over 8 weeks extra that they can earn. So now we move into the more adult realm of financial literacy, and the question is, what is credit? On this slide, it would be best if you actually ask someone, probably only one or two, to define what they think credit is, but don't spend too much more time on it. We do have a lot more content in the slides moving forward. So in keeping with the format of the presentation, the next slide is a multiple choice, but a bit more difficult. So we're saying in here, which of these are credit? And as you can see in the speaker notes, 2 or 3 of these could in fact be determined as credit. Now you should be aware of that as credit advisors, as a finance broker, so I hope you can get it right as well. It's really important on this slide now that you use your experience as a finance broker to help define this with your audience and answer some questions. You may get questions around, say, is lay-by in fact credit? Again, refer to your speaker notes, be aware of those before you get up and present. So the next slide is about misuse of credit. And again, we're giving scenarios where people can understand how they positively use credit in terms of paying off debt, if they partially pay off debt versus not paying at all, what the consequence of that. It's really important on the third point that you emphasise a non-payment of any sort of loan or debt in any way can in fact affect their reputation for up to 7 years. So the next one is about earning, and although it says earning, it's actually focusing on the cost of living. And so obviously you can tell we're in the high school realm right now because they will be entering the workforce or leaving home soon. What are the costs of moving out of home? Because many people, according to the Financial Literacy Council, do not have a real understanding of what it costs to move out of home and live. And so what we're going to do in the next slide after this is show the potential costs of moving out of home, which may shock even you. So what are the costs of moving out of home is a key challenge for young people today. Many of them underestimate the cost of leaving home to live. It all looks very exciting and more freedom, but in fact there are costs, and it's a financial literacy issue. So what we've done in a table has listed for you the potential costs of moving out of home, including entertainment per week, so that they can start to realise the real true cost or impact on them, no matter what they earn, of living out of home. And have a bit of fun with it. You could maybe talk about your own experience when you first moved out of home. Let's keep it interactive with your audience. So the next slide is borrowing, something that should be very close to your hearts as finance brokers. And the question we're asking is, what would you borrow for? So our suggestion here is that you ask 2 or 3 people within the room, even if one of them is a parent, to try and get different perspectives about what you might borrow to achieve. So on the slide, you'll see 3 pictures, which are generally the journey of borrowing that people go through. They tend to move from the car to the holiday to the house, is more of the life journey. So our suggestion to you in running this presentation is to give an example of the first thing you had to borrow money for. Talk about it. It's not that you talk about it in a big noting way or a better than you way. It's just something fun, like I borrowed $4,000 to buy a car. Tell a story about something so that they feel you're real, and then ask 1 or 2 people in the audience for something they think they would borrow for. So continuing on the theme of borrowing, we're actually now going to look at what do they need to achieve a borrowing capacity or ability. And the key things there are savings, a credit rating, and income. So they need to be in some. They can't just get money when they need it. They need to understand the requirements within society to actually achieve a borrowing capacity. So now we're going to talk about credit and credit history. And again, as finance brokers, you know this back to front. It's something you deal with every day, but it is a major challenge. So important that you talk about it. So I want you to explain, based on either your experience or our speaker notes, what a credit history is and how it can impact on them. As part of the credit history conversation, we're going to talk about credit ratings. We're going to get you now to ask them a question on who would be the sort of person you'd lend money to. By bringing in a personal experience or a personal judgment into the presentation, it allows them to really think about what sort of person they would lend money to, and your speaker notes have the details of how to present that. So the next topic is on the credit report, so the person's actual credit report and what it is. Your speaker notes has a very simple definition of what a credit report is and the impact on them. And at this point, for the first time, I'd probably get you to ask if anyone had a question related to that. If not, move on to the next slide. We've talked a lot about credit in this presentation, and so our final slide of the presentation talks about your credit rating, as in their credit rating. And we want to emphasise one point: what you do today can have impacts lasting for 7 years. We want to leave with a message that it's very important them to have a positive credit and borrowing experience and become good payers, because it does impact greatly on their lives in the future. Last thing to do is to ask if there's any questions. Don't entertain too many questions, because you've probably hit your limit in terms of what the kids can handle, so that you'll be around after the presentation to take any questions and inquiries from people. One of the great things about delivering community involvement work at all levels, and Global Money Week is one of many things that the MFAA will be delivering, is that a positive involved with the community will always end up in positive business results. Don't worry about the sell. Focus on being this positive, involved person, educate them, and education is far more powerful than the sell. Those people who position themselves as the educator in their community and being involved with them have amazing business benefits. So you don't even need to look for it, it'll happen automatically. Just to re-emphasise that rule, we're not there to sell. If you are asked for a business card, it of course is all right to hand a business card to a parent, but not to a child. It's really important that we do honour this in terms of this being a long-term initiative for our industry. More importantly, the team at the MFAA are available to you. You have your local BDMs who you can contact, anyone in the marketing team, all the way up to Siobhan, our CEO. We're all willing to assist you in delivering the best possible presentation that you can. Feel free to email or call us with any questions or inquiries or assistance we can provide.